excuse me for not understanding the schedule that we had aligned for today, and so it's my bad that I got a little tiffy there. Pardon me. I'm right back to going to where we were when we ended the last video. 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. This is the idea, is to make the video shorter for you all, because you'll all respond more to a shorter video, evidently. All right, and if that's the case, then I'm glad that we stopped. Let me continue then with 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, each in its and also the principle of a single moment of life comprising 3,000 realms. A single moment of life, each in it, is also translated as one's mind, one thought, or one thought moment. That was that single moment of life I was talking about before. A philosophical system established by Tentai in his great concentration and insight, the Makashikan, on the basis of the phrase, the true aspect of all phenomena, from the expedient means second chapter of the Lotus Sutra. The 3,000 realms, or the entire phenomenal world, exist in a single moment of life, ultimate simultaneity. The number 3,000 here comes from following calculation: 10 worlds by 10 worlds by 10 factors by 3 realms of existence. Life at each moment manifests one of the 10 worlds. Each of these worlds possess the potential for all 10 within itself simultaneously, and this is mutual possession, or mutual inclusion of the 10 worlds, is represented as 102, or 100 worlds, or 100, should be as represented as 100, or 100 possible worlds. Each of these worlds possesses the 10 factors, making 1,000 factors or potentials, and these operate within each of the 3 realms of existence, thus making 3,000 realms. The theoretical teaching, first half of the Lotus Sutra, expounds the 10 factors of life. It also sets forth the attainment of Buddhahood by persons of the 2 vehicles, voice hearers and cause awakened ones, which signifies the mutual possession of the 10 worlds. The essential teaching, latter half of the sutra, reveals the true cause, the eternal 9 worlds, and the true effect, eternal Buddhahood, and the true land, the eternal land or realm of the environment. Tentai unified all these concepts in one system, 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. Volume 5 of Great Concentration and Insight reads, life at each moment is endowed with the 10 worlds. At the same time, each of the 10 worlds is endowed with the 10 worlds, so that an entity of life actually possesses 100 worlds. Each of these worlds in turn possess 30 realms, which means that in the 100 worlds, there are 3,000 realms. The 3,000 realms of existence are all possessed by life in a single moment. They're all simultaneous. If there is no life, that is the end of the matter. But if there is the slightest bit of life, it contains all the 3,000 realms. This is what we mean when we speak of the region of the unfathomable. Life at each moment means life as an indivisible whole that includes body and mind, cause and effect, and sentient and insentient things. A single moment of life is endowed, as stated above, with 3,000 realms. The relationship of these 2 elements is not such that one pervades the other, or that they are simultaneous in the sense that one is included in the other. Actually, they are non-dual, or as Tentai put it, 2 in phenomena, but not 2 in essence. Okay, so they're simultaneous in regard to their ability to manifest and replace one another identically in a continuous flow. The provisional teaching stated that all phenomena arise from the mind and that they are subordinate to the mind. The Lotus Sutra clarifies that the true aspect is inseparable from all phenomena, and that all phenomena, just as they are in themselves the true aspect. All phenomena are just as they are in themselves, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. That's the true aspect. When Tentai stated the 3,000 realms of existence are all possessed by life in a single moment, when Tentai stated that 3,000 realms of existence are all possessed by life in a single moment, but if there is the slightest bit of life, it contains all the 3,000 realms. Pardon me, the previous phrase that I was quoted. He is referring to that non-duality of a single moment of life in the 3,000 realms. The 3,000 realms in a single moment of life is classified into two, as the theoretical principle and the actual embodiment of this principle. These are respectively terms as the theoretical 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, and the actual 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. The theoretical principle is based on the theoretical teaching of the Lotus Sutra, which expounds the equality of Buddhahood in the 9 worlds. Both, it points out, are manifestations of the true aspect. And the theoretical teaching also reveals the mutual possession of the 10 worlds based on the principle that persons of the two vehicles who were denied Buddhahood in the previous teachings also possess innate Buddhahood and can attain it. Strictly speaking, however, the theoretical teaching reveals only the 100 worlds and, multiplying by the 10 factors of life, the 1,000 factors, and does not reveal their eternal nature. Only when supported by the essential teaching, the latter half of the Lotus Sutra, can the theoretical teaching be said to expound theoretically as a possibility the 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, because it leaves out the 3 realms, the realm of the person, the persons, and the realm of the environment. On the other hand, the essential teaching reveals Shakyamuni's enlightenment in the remote past, the true effect, eternal Buddhahood, the eternal life of his disciples, the bodhisattvas of the earth, the true cause, the eternal 9 worlds, and the eternity of the Saha world, the true land. These explain the eternal 10 worlds and the eternal 3 realms of existence, and thus the actual 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. Despite its comprehensive view, the essential teaching does not go on to reveal the practice that enables one to embody directly this principle of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. Though the sutra says if there are those who hear the law, not a one of them will fail to attain Buddhahood, it does not identify what this law is. That is why Nichiren defined the entire Lotus Sutra, both the theoretical and essential teachings, as representing the theoretical 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. In contrast, Nichiren embodied his life embracing the 3,000 realms in a single moment, or the life of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, in the mandala known as the Gohonzon, and established the practice for attaining it, chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo with faith. That practice is to chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo with faith in the Gohonzon. In Nichiren's teaching, this is the practice of observing the mind, because that's when we start to interact with our own Dharma body. Observing one's own mind and seeing Buddhahood in it for this, observing one's own mind and seeing Buddhahood in it. For this reason, his teaching is summarized in the phrase, embracing the Gohonzon is in itself observing one's mind, or embracing the Gohonzon is in itself attaining Buddhahood. He states in his 1273 letter known as Reply to Kyo-o, I, Nichiren, have inscribed my life in Sumi ink, so believe in the Gohonzon with your whole heart. The Buddha's will is the Lotus Sutra, but the soul of Nichiren is nothing other than Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. In his 1273 treatise, The Object of Devotion for Observing the Mind, showing profound compassion for those unable to comprehend the gem of the doctrine of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, the Buddha wrapped it within the 5 characters of within the 5 characters of Myoho Renge-kyo, with which he then adorned the necks of the ignorant people of the latter age. We're in the latter age. Nichikan, the 26th chief priest of Taisakaji Temple, interpreted the above passage of Volume 5 of Great Concentration and Insight from the viewpoint of Nichiren's teaching. Nichikan defined life at each moment as the life of the eternal Buddha, or Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which is inscribed down the center of the Gohonzon. He further interpreted endowed with the 10 worlds as the Buddhas, bodhisattvas, and other figures inscribed on both sides of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo in the Gohonzon. These represent the principles of the mutual possession of the 10 worlds, the the 10 worlds, the 100 worlds, and the 1,000 factors, and the 3,000 realms. According to Nichikan, the sentence, the 3,000 realms in a single the 3,000, according to Nichikan, the sentence, the 3,000 realms of existence are all possessed by life in a single moment, refers to the region of the unfathomable, which he interprets as the object of devotion that embodies the principle of the 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, the mirror by which we are able to bring forth our perception of those 3,000 realms. This is not to be viewed simply as an external object, but as something that exists in the life of a person with faith in the object of devotion. So that's why I just referred to the Gohonzon as the mirror. It's not the scroll. It's the effect of chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo to the object of devotion, embracing the object of devotion with faith, and then having that reality perceived by your mind and being able to embody the understanding that your body itself is the Buddha. As the Daishonin says in the Gosho, outside of our body, there is no Buddha. He says that in important point 13 of the 11th chapter. This is not to be viewed simply as an external object, but as something that exists in the life of a person with faith in the object of devotion, the eternally endowed three bodies. Without faith, the object of devotion endowed with the 3,000 realms does not exist in one's life. Thus, Nichikan stated, this Nichikan stated is the ultimate meaning of Tentai's doctrine. So the bottom line is this something that you have to manifest. It's inherently there. It's endowed. You're endowed as a human being with that potential, but it only comes forth through action, causal action. We're almost finished. Ichinen. All right. We always talk about Ichinen, and of course, Ichinen Sanzen is a component of Ichinen Sanzen. So, a single moment of life, this one moment, this one slice of life that cannot be described as a second or a microsecond or a division of anything that has to do with time, because it contains the simultaneity of cause and effect. Okay, it's both in the same moment creating cause and also reflecting effect. They're always together. There's no moment that doesn't contain both simultaneously. So, Ichinen, a single moment of life, one instant of thought, or the mind, or life at a single moment. Also, life moment, thought moment, or simply a single moment or instant. Ichinen has various meanings in Buddhism. One, a moment or an extremely short period comparable to the Sanskrit term kanasha, kashyana. The treatise on the Great Perfection of Wisdom defines one kashyana or moment as a 60th of the time it takes to snap one's fingers. 2, the functioning of the mind for one moment. The distinctions and benefits, 17th chapter of the Lotus Sutra speaks of a single moment of belief and understanding. 3, to focus one's mind on meditating on a Buddha. Shantao, a patriarch of the Chinese Pure Land school, defined Ichinen as one instant of thought, as chanting Amida Buddha's name once. 4, Tentai had a definition, philosophically interpreting Ichinen in his doctrine, 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, Ichinen Sanzen. In this doctrine, Ichinen indicates the mind of an ordinary person which at each moment is endowed with the potential of 3,000 realms. Its characteristics are, it pervades the entire universe, it includes both the body and mind, and it includes both self and environment, and it gives rise to good and evil, and it encompasses cause and effect simultaneously. Nichiren embodied this philosophical framework in the form of a mandala, embodied this philosophical framework in a mandala known as the Gohonzon. By this, he aimed to establish a practical way for ordinary people to manifest Buddhahood from among the 10 worlds of their own lives. Continuing, the 6 stages of practice. 6 stages of practice, Rokusoku. Also 6 identities, 6 stages of in the practice of the Lotus Sutra, formulated by Tentai in great concentration and insight. They are, and I may have already stated this, I'm not sure. They are the stage of being a Buddha in theory. At this stage, one has not yet heard the correct teaching and is ignorant of Buddhism. Nonetheless, a single moment of life is in itself identical to the truth of the matrix of the thus come one. I believe I have. In other words, one is a potential Buddha. 2, the stage of hearing the name of the words of the truth. At this stage, through the spoken or written word, one comes to an intellectual understanding that one has the Buddha nature and that all phenomena are manifestations of the Buddha law. This may take place through reading or hearing the words of the sutras. 3, the stage of perception and action. Here one perceives the truth of the Buddha nature within oneself through practice. The truth and the wisdom to perceive it are in accord with each other, and one's words match one's actions. 4th, the stage of resemblance to enlightenment. At this stage, one eliminates the first of the 3 categories of illusion and attains purification of the 6 sense organs. Having advanced as far, one's wisdom resembles that of a Buddha. In terms of the 52 stages of practice, this stage corresponds to the first 10 stages, the 10 stages of faith. 5, the stage of progressive awakening. And this is the stage in which one eradicates all illusions except fundamental darkness and awakens progressively in the truth of one's Buddha nature. In terms of the 52 stages, it corresponds to the 11th, the first stage of security. Through the 51st, the stage of near perfect enlightenment. 6th, the stage of ultimate enlightenment, the highest stage of practice. At this stage, one finally eliminates fundamental darkness and fully manifests the Buddha nature. This corresponds to the stage of perfect enlightenment, the last of the 52 stages. Tentai taught that all people at whatever stage of practice are equally endowed with the potential to attempt for Buddhahood. In this way, he prevented his disciples from falling into the error of self-deprecation and becoming discouraged. On the other hand, possessing the Buddha nature is not the same as attaining Buddhahood. Tentai, therefore, divided practice into 6 progressive stages to prevent his disciples from falling into the error of arrogance and relaxing their efforts. In great concentration and insight, he states if one lacks faith, one will object that it pertains to the lofty realm of the sages, something far beyond the capacity of one's own wisdom to understand. If one lacks wisdom, one will become puffed up with arrogance and will claim to be equal to the Buddha, to be the equal of the Buddha. The record of the orally transmitted teaching gives Nichiren's interpretation of the 6 stages of practice. Speaking in terms of the 6 stages of practice, he says you can become the Buddha. Speaking in terms of the 6 stages of practice, the thus come one in this, the lifespan chapter, is an ordinary mortal who is at the first stage, that of being a Buddha in theory. When one reverently accepts Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, one is at the next stage, that of hearing the name and the words of the truth. That is, one has for the first time heard the Daimoku. When having heard the Daimoku, one proceeds to put it into practice. This is the 3rd stage, that of perception and action. In this stage, one perceives the object of devotion that embodies the 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. When one succeeds in overcoming various illusions and obstacles, this is the 4th stage, that of a resemblance to enlightenment. When one sets out to convert others, this is the 5th stage, that of progressive awakening. And when one comes at last to the realization that one is a Buddha eternally endowed with the 3 bodies, then one is a Buddha of the 6th and highest stage, that of ultimate enlightenment. Speaking of the chapter as a whole, the idea of gradually overcoming delusions is not the ultimate meaning of the lifespan chapter. You should understand that the ultimate meaning of this chapter is that ordinary mortals, just as they are in their original states of being, are Buddhas. And if you ask what is the action or practice carried out by the Buddha eternally endowed with 3 bodies, it is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. The parable of the phantom city. The Buddha made this pronouncement to the monks. Once in the past, an immeasurable, boundless, inconceivable asamyak number of kalpas ago, there was at that time a Buddha named Great Universal Wisdom Excellence, thus come one, worthy of offerings, of right and universal knowledge, perfect clarity and conduct, well gone, understanding the world, unexcelled worthy, trainer of people, teacher of heavenly and human beings, Buddha, world honored one. His name was called, his land was named well constituted, and his kalpa was named great form. We're talking about great universal wisdom excellence. Shakyamuni is one of the 16 sons of great universal wisdom excellence. Second paragraph. Now monks, since the Buddha passed into extinction, a very long time has passed. Suppose, for example, that someone took all the earth in a major world system and ground it into the particles like powdered ink, and that as he passed through the 1,000 lands of the east, he dropped one grain of earth, no bigger in size than a speck of dust. Again, when he passed through another 1,000 lands, he dropped another grain of earth. Suppose he went on in this way until he had finished dropping all the grains of earth. Now, what is your opinion? Do you think that, with regard to those lands, the masters of calculation or his disciples of the masters of calculation would be able to determine the number of lands that had been visited in the process, or would they not? That would be impossible, world honored ones. They all answered. Now, monks, suppose there is one one should take the earth of all the lands this man has passed through, though he dropped a grain of earth there or not, and should pound it into dust, and suppose that one particle of dust should represent one kalpa. The kalpas that have elapsed since that Buddha entered extinction would still exceed the number of dust particles by immeasurable, boundless hundreds, thousands, 10,000 millions of asamyak kalpas. But because I employ the thus come one's power to know and see, when I look at that far off time, it seems like today. At that time, the world honored one, wishing to state his meaning once more, spoke in verse form, saying, when I think of it, in the past, immeasurable, boundless kalpas ago, there was a Buddha, most honored one of two-legged beings, named Great Universal Wisdom Excellence. If a person should use his strength to smash the ground of a major world system, reducing it to its earth to particles the size of powdered ink, and when he passed through 1,000 lands, he should drop one speck of earth. And if he continued in this manner until he exhausted all the specks of earth, he then took the soil of the lands he had passed through, both those he had dropped a speck in and those he had not, and once more ground their earth into dust, and then took one grain of dust to represent one kalpa, the number of tiny grains of dust would be less than the number of kalpas in the past when that Buddha lived. Since the Buddha passed into extinction, an immeasurable number of kalpas such as this have passed. The thus come one, through his unheralded wisdom, knows the time when the Buddha passed into extinction, and his voice hears and bodhisattvas as though he were witnessing that extinction right now. You monks should understand that the Buddha wisdom is pure, subtle, wonderful, without outflows, without hindrance, reaching to and penetrating immeasurable kalpas. And rather than read you the whole parable of the Phantom City, this is the chapter of the Lotus Sutra that qualifies Sanzen Jintingo, and then in the merging from the earth, or I believe maybe even in the lifespan chapter. In the lifespan chapter, he qualifies Goyaku Jintingo, or numberless major world system dust particle kalpas. So I don't know why I have this in what I'm supposed to read, but I'm finally done here. This is the 5 stages of practice, which pertains to the video, or the next video we're going to do. The 5 stages of practice, Gohon, 5 progressive stages of practice to be followed after Shakyamuni's death, described by Tentai in the words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra. Tentai formulated them based on the content of the distinctions and benefits, 17th chapter of the Lotus Sutra. They are to rejoice on hearing the Lotus Sutra, to read and recite the sutra, 3, to expound the sutra to others, 4, to embrace the sutra and practice the 6 paramitas, and 5, to perfect one's practice of the 6 paramitas. For example, the first stage derives from the passage in the Distinctions and Benefits chapter that reads, if after the thus come one is entered extinction, there are those who hear this sutra and do not slander or speak ill of it, but feel joy in their hearts, they should know that this is a sign that they have already shown deep faith and understanding. Okay, so I'm going to go on. The next thing here will be the 6 paramitas, which he was just mentioned. The 6 paramitas required of Mahayana bodhisattvas in order to attain Buddhahood. The Sanskrit word paramita is interpreted as perfection or having reached the opposite shore, i.e. to cross the shore of delusion to the shore of enlightenment. I'll skip to just so you know, the Daishonin says we don't have to do it in the latter day of the law, that chanting Daimoku to the Gohonzon is the equivalent of practicing the 6 paramitas. But for the sake of understanding the text, the Sanskrit word paramita is interpreted as perfection or having reached the opposite shore, i.e. to cross from the shore of delusion to the shore of enlightenment. The 6 paramitas are: the first, almsgiving, which includes material almsgiving, almsgiving of the law, and almsgiving of fearlessness, meaning to remove fear and give relief. 2, keeping the precepts. 3, forbearance, or to bear up patiently and continue one's Buddhist practice under all opposition and hardships. 4, assiduousness, and again I'm skipping the Sanskrit each time that I'm mentioning this in English. Assiduousness, to practice the other 5 paramitas ceaselessly and with utmost physical and spiritual effort. 5, meditation, to focus the mind and contemplate the truth with a tranquil mind. And 6, the obtaining of wisdom, which enables one to perceive the true nature of all living things. And lastly, I believe this is lastly, should be 4 stages. Yeah, the 4, because this is the 4 stages of faith and the 5 stages of practice. I just did the 5 stages of practice a moment ago. This is the end. 4 stages of faith. The stages of faith of those who embrace the Lotus Sutra during Shakyamuni's lifetime. So these don't really pertain to us in the latter day of the law. Tentai formulated these 4 stages in the words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra on the basis of the Distinctions and Benefits chapter of the Lotus Sutra. Again, not the Makashikan, but on words and phrases. They are to believe in and understand the sutra even for a moment. 2, to generally understand the import of the words of the sutra. 3, to expound the teachings of the sutra widely for others. 4, to realize the deep faith, the truth expounded by the Buddha. The first stage, for example, derives from the passage of the Distinctions and Benefits chapter that reads, if there are living beings who, on hearing that the lifespan of the thus come one is of such long duration, are able to believe and understand it even for a moment, the benefits they gain thereby will be without limit or measure. The remaining stages similarly derive from passages of the Distinctions and Benefits chapter. And that's it for today. We'll see you next time when we begin to read from page 783 on the 4 stages of faith and the 5 stages of practice, one of the 10 most important writings of Nichiren Daishonin. Thank you.